Greetings, everyone. This is Ravencroft with the Weekly Comic Book Roundup. We've already covered this week's X-Men books, Avengers books, miscellaneous Marvel books, as well as this week's Empire tie-in, which brings us to this week's Spider-Man related books and this week's DC books. Kicking things off with Miles Morales Spider-Man number 18. As you can tell from the cover, is part of the Outlawed story. Now, for those of you who might not remember, because, well, you know, current events, Outlawed was a quasi-crossover Marvel was doing, wherein teen heroes were being more greater policed by a new agency called Cradle, led by former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Dum Dum Dugan, which basically implies that Nick Fury or someone went back on Nick Fury's promise to Dugan from Original Sin. That being that, you know, Dugan, the various LMDs of Dugan that Fury's been using will not be in continued use anymore. Anywho, where we left off, Miles had dinner with his family and actually had a bit of a disagreement about the whole Kamala's law with his mother, and decided to go home early and take care of, you know. When he arrived home, however, there was already someone there. Someone dressed in his spider suit. So we begin in Brooklyn with Miles's parents leaving yoga, then going to eat. Miles's father remarks that he used to, you know, years and years ago, he used to boost Wallace's neighborhood. If he had told, and says that if you had told him that he'd be taking a baby to yoga down here, but Miles's mom says, you know, times change and people change. So they're heading home to catch up with Miles. But at home, Miles is dealing with an imposter Spider-Man who seems to have all of his tricks: wall crawling, agility, spider sense. And Spider-Man doesn't have the upper hand, and Miles doesn't have the upper hand with Venom Blast. So he calls his parents to let them know that there's what's going on. However, as he does this, the imposter gets back up and blows out the front windows with a Venom Blast. So she tells... So his parents said they have to get home now. However, Miles' father stops for a second. Tells Rio, Miles' mother, to take Billy, their newborn daughter, out of the stroller, and when he gives the word, she's to run. However, she doesn't get far as they're surrounded by Cradle. At Brooklyn Visions Academy, all members of extracurricular activities are being forced to sign a pledge to make administrators aware of any students engaged in so-called superheroics. It's being explained that you know, either sign the pledge or leave. So Barbara decides to do neither, and also states that the Cradle agents of the school should leave. So they begin to organize a sit-in. The agent on site calls her supervisor, while Barbara makes a call as well. Meanwhile, Miles manages to get away. But the imposter follows them. The two of them have a fight, a rooftop fight, and it ends up they have a street basketball court. And Miles essentially calls imposter bootleg. And so they do basically a Venom Blast contest. They do a massive explosion. Back at Brooklyn Visions, it turns out that Barbara called local congresswoman, who is giving the Cradle agent what for. However, the Cradle agent decides that they're done talking, and it's now been declared that the students protesting are interfering with federal agents. They don't get up and go home, or they can go to jail. The students start saying they're not going anywhere, leading to them being arrested. With the head agent, the agent on site, saying that if the principal or the congresswoman want to interfere as well, they can get arrested too. Back with Miles' parents, they're surrounded by Cradle, but not saying anything. Jeff, Miles' father, tells Rita that the second she sees an opening, run like hell. She asks what Jeff's going to do, and he says he's going to make an opening. That's exactly what he does as he runs off. Elsewhere, Miles comes to after the Venom Blast explosion, only to find himself back in the facility that kidnapped him months previously. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to Ravencroft, Institute for the Criminally Insane, number 4. Where we'd left off, the Unwanted had gotten loose and were taking over the asylum. We begin with another tale of Ravencroft's past. Christmas morning, many years ago, the Daily Bugle would receive a very strange phone call, which would be answered by none other than Cub reporter John Jonah Jameson. Jameson claimed that the menace on the other end of the line had told him that he had evidently walked into Ravencroft that Christmas morning with not much in the way of holiday spirit. Instead, he'd come seeking to deck the halls with payback for how he was treated as a patient, and how he was abused and tortured. And now he had the means to make himself heard, claiming it was all because of aliens. Of course, Jameson thought the guy was full of shit, and suggested that maybe the guy should check into Ravencroft and have his head examined. However, the man, undeterred, continued recounting his tale. There was beings from other planets had given him a very special gift this holiday season, a very powerful gift. The Cosmic Cube. Jameson wrote the story off as a strange prank. Too much eggnog. However, the next morning, the authorities discovered there was anything but. Everyone was gone. The faculty, the prisoners, the man himself, every single one of them, as if they never existed at all. The Unwanted were still there, but no one knew of them. And now, the Unwanted have made themselves heard. They plan to exact their revenge upon this house of evil, and thanks to the wool over the eyes of the Kingpin and his men, the takeover is a peaceful one, for the most part. However, unlike that fateful Christmas day, Ravencroft's cells are empty. Apparently the Unwanted have released all of the inmates. Only one I can definitively pick out is Mr. Hyde. Some look familiar, but not familiar enough to where I can actually put a name with a face, or I just plain don't know. Oh, okay, that's it. Doppelganger. The leader of the Unwanted is William Bud Connor, one of Cap's best friends in World War II. Got PSD and was sent to Ravencroft for help. However, instead he was experimented on and dehumanized instead. And he wishes to ensure that Ravencroft never hurts anyone ever again. So it turns out the Unwanted are torturing John Jameson, wanting to know where the journal of Jonas Ravencroft is. Bud explains that he knows exactly what it is, and it shows how the asylum destroyed so many lives, including that of its own creator. Also, it appears that Fizz took precautions with the new Ravencroft due to its nature. He didn't want to fall in the wrong hands, and so, well, there's a self-destruct mechanism which has been activated. In the cells, the staff have been placed in the cells. D-Man has a gaping hole in his chest, but is still alive. Misty Knight gets up in the faces of some of the Unwanted. Norman Osborn, however, figures he can help. And he tells them that, and he tells the Unwanted that their boss is going about it the wrong way. If they want John Jameson to talk, that it shouldn't be torturing him, but rather Misty. And so, Norman and Misty are let out. Misty's, of course, furious with Osborn. And he pushes her against the wall and whispers, "Throw me at them." And then run to Misty. So, she throws Norman at the Unwanted and makes a break for it. Pretty sure let's get to this time the same way she did when during the whole Carnage fiasco. Into the sewers. Which have been blocked off. At least the tunnels themselves. So some of the Unwanted follow her, and she explains that she got a whole new arm after the whole thing with Carnage. New features. One of them was inspired by an old friend. It's very clearly, basically, she gave herself the Iron Fist. And apparently she's been dying to test it out. However, a hail of gunfire cuts the Unwanted down, and Misty's savior tells her to save it. There'll be plenty more where that came from. Her savior being none other than Frank Castle, the Punisher, a recent addition to the Ravencroft inmates. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to this week's DC books, starting with DCeased Dead Planet #3. And before we get started, I'm going to show you the movie homage variant cover. So all of the DCeased issues have had, from starting with the first series and going on into the Good Day to Die one-shot, as well as the Unkillables miniseries, each issue has had a movie homage variant cover. Generally a comic booked up version of classic movie poster. I think if I remember correctly, Unkillables #1, I think, was based on Full Metal Jacket and had instead of Private Joker's helmet, it had Red Hood's helmet, mask. So for DC's Dead Planet number 3, we get D is for DCeased. Anti-life forever. Some of the others that there have been was also a Critters-inspired cover in the first series. There was a cover inspired by The Nun. One inspired by Final Destination, so on and so forth. Anyways, where we left off in Dead Planet. On Dead Planet number 2. The League had made it to Ivy's garden. Maybe they'd be able to save Superman, but they weren't sure. Dr. Fate was at least going to try. However, the Shadow Pact had been called away to Australia, with Swamp Thing explaining that in Australia the green is screaming. And so Constantine, Zatanna, Detective Chimp, Swamp Thing, Blue Devil, and Ragman headed off to Australia. And they found a bunker surrounded by hellfire and also a moat. A moat. The moat looked to be made of blood, but was in actuality an anti-life infected plastic man. Blue Devil and Ragman were sadly killed. So the issue begins. Swamp Thing has made a bubble of green around them, basically to protect the Shadow Pact from anti-life Plastic Man. And Zatanna's got a plan for dealing with Plastic Man. Pushing him into the hellfire. Respects are paid to both Ragman and Blue Devil. And then they discover just who it is that's running everything. That's controlling the bunker. It's a bunker full of rich bastards. Oswald Cobblepot, Simon Stagg, Max Lord. Back at Ivy's garden, Jim Gordon catches up with, Batman. Offers to shake him a hug and shake his hand and welcome him back to Earth, but Damian decides to give Jim a hug. Also, it turns out that Damian long saw Bruce's dependence upon Alfred as kind of embarrassing. Batman should be entirely self-sufficient. Therefore, Batman should sew. But, yeah. Gordon and Damian hug one another, with Gordon saying that, Batman wanted to hug her. Though Damian remembers, he's not as emotionally stunted. Adding that they're lucky Scarecrow never realized that Bruce's greatest fear was intimacy. Jim, with Gordon responding that Batman could have been chased out of Gotham by a supportive pat on the shoulder. And Dr. Fate arrives and informs Damian that Superman's healing was successful and he'll wake up soon. Crypto's there, quite happy to see that John's alive. Also waiting is Mary, who reveals her identity, that she's Mary Marvel to him. And that her and Dr. Fate helped patch Superman back together. Inside the bunker, they have plants growing throughout. And things are explained that they have the rich have their own soldiers. Their families are employed as cooking and cleaning staff. And when Zatanna calls them slaves, Stagg counters that their services given in exchange for shelter. They're not slaves. Constantine, of course, is surprisingly, well, surprised that they actually managed to find a way to keep the classes in place through an apocalypse. With Detective Chimp adding this is like the Garden of Eden, but everyone who lives here is a snake. And Swamp Thing notes that this is the point from which the Green is crying out. Also present is none other than Jason Blood. Which Constantine realizes why there's hellfire. But Blood wants to talk to Constantine. As Etrigan. Though Constantine practically begs him to, skip the rhyming. Apparently, Hell isn't happy though. There are souls trapped in the anti-living. And Hell is beyond annoyed they're not getting a piece of all the Armageddon. And apparently Trigon is coming to wipe everything away. Trigon is going to destroy the world and nothing can stop him. Though, Constantine's turned that way before. They hear scream and some gunfire, and so John goes to check it out. Apparently, Swamp Thing has discovered why the Green is screaming. They've imprisoned Cobblepot, Stagg, and Lord have imprisoned the Floronic Man and are torturing him, and he's forcing the Green to produce for them. So Swamp Thing wraps some tendrils around Maxwell Lord and insists that Floronic may be released. Though Lord tells him that he has to take orders from a walking houseplant. Just as the walking houseplant basically squeezes his head off. And with that, another one of the guests at the bunker is revealed to be none other than Dr. Anthony Ivo, who summons forth a Mazo. He gets a good shot in at Swamp Thing, but that doesn't kill him. And while Zatanna's able to stop one, they can't. She's not gonna. They've got more than one Amazo. So Constantine decides it's time to go. However, Swamp Thing doesn't want to go, as they're torturing and abusing, and John kind of, yes, they are. It's terrible, but we'll come back with a plan and we'll fuck them up. But for now, we go home. And as they leap through the portal, Stagg notes that likely they'll return, while Cobblepot says it doesn't matter. After all, they won't be here much longer, because the army of Amazos they've been building are almost ready. The next day in Gotham, Superman's healed, Cyborg's head is reattached to his body, and the two of them are, and they're trying to figure out how to figure out what the cure is. And so Superman says that they know there is a cure, and there are billions of infected people relying on them. They'll find it, and they'll save everyone. Batman figures that if there's an anti-life equation, it stands to reason there must also be a life equation. The trick is unlocking it. Detective Chimp mentions that half of the equation was held by Darkseid. Knowledge of the new gods may be what's needed there. However, it's noted that Darkseid is dead. Constantine does, though, he might actually know exactly what's needed, but it means there's something he really doesn't want to do and bothering someone who would prefer to stay unbothered. Then asks to borrow the lasso of truth and tells Detective Chimp will need his help. When Superman asks what he's needed to do, Constantine says nothing yet. You know, you're Superman, you'll probably need to save everything in the next bit. And it turns out that John and Detective Chimp are off in search of Mr. Miracle. With John remarking that the thing about heroic sacrifices, there was a mission. Booster Gold was going to go back in time and stop all this happening. But the future stopped existing, and so did he. Meaning Mr. Miracle, Big Bard had sacrificed themselves for a man who was never born. Problem is, Bard died and Mr. Miracle escaped. And Constantine's able to say the right thing. You know? What if there was a way to save her? He swears he's telling the truth, and Miracle doesn't believe him. I mean, if you believe John Constantine, generally speaking, you know, you probably deserve to be lied to. Okay, maybe not, but, you know, you get the idea. Which is where the lasso of truth comes into play. And John tells them there is a cure. They can save her. Chimp adds that the cure's inside where they can't get to it. They need apocalyptic knowledge. So potentially Mother Box. And John says, sure, they could ask the Mother Box, but he's guessing the only answer is going to be ping, ping, ping. And so he explains the plan is to steal the throne from a god. Meaning they're going after the Mobius chair. That is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our final book of the week. Strange Adventures, number 5. Where we left off, Mr. Terrific had gone to Rand to do some further investigate, further investigate everything involving the Stranges. While there, he learned that he actually wasn't going to be able to look at all the information, even though he had managed to teach himself the Pict language completely, so he could actually read the Pict, the Pict histories of the war. And this caused some problems, and he was very summarily sent back to Earth. This issue 5, actually takes place at the same time. Well, it's present day portions do. So we begin with a flashback back to during the war. Adam and Alana are there with are on Rand in the cave system with Kant, son of Kirit, of the Hilltop tribe. And he's speaking to one of the underworlders, cave people, who promptly killed Kient. But the Strangers are to gather allies. In the present, it turns out Booster Gold had called Adam Strange, and apparently Superman and Batman sent out a message to the whole Justice League that no one's supposed to be talking to him now. And so Booster wanted to know why, and why am I not allowed to talk? I don't know you, but why am I not allowed to talk to you? And Alana suggested it's probably just because Adam's more popular than they are. Superheroes are just needy celebrities in capes. But apparently, now that the League members aren't supposed to talk to Adam, everyone's talking about him. And then Alana gets a alert on her phone. Apparently, a drone that was that killed 3 in Gotham City before being stopped by Batman was found to be of Pict origin. Back in the flashback, the leader, Adam and Alana are told to wait in a cave for a day, while cave people, discuss things. And then if it's okay, we can wait a day, I'll be fine. Go along informs them that they don't have suns down in the caves. A day refers to the movement of rocks caused by shifts in the waves of the oceans above. A cycle of the moons. A day is not a day, it is a month. And they have no choice in the matter. So they have to wait. In the present, the story about Batman taking down a Pict drone has become quite the big thing, and in front of Lana Strange, Martian Manhunter, and General Kanagar are testifying about Earth's readiness for a potential Pict invasion. In the audience as well is Adam, simply watching, not testifying. The chairman of the committee is, quite pleased with the statement made by Martian Manhunter. It's honestly a very canned statement. In fact, I am not Superman. I'll start from the beginning. I am in complete agreement with General Kanagar, with whom we have been coordinating since we discovered the possible Pict threat. The bottom line is, what I would like you, the representatives of the American people, to understand, what we face is grave and terrible, yes, very much so. Tragically so. But it is not extraordinary. We are ready to face this threat. The Justice League has repelled Earth's invasion from every possible corner of reality, and, frankly, some of the impossible corners as well. Lives were lost in many of these circumstances, yes, and there is no way to minimize that loss. But we must keep in mind that in every one of these cases we were able to triumph. We were able to see another day. I'm not Superman, but I have worked at his side for many years, and as his optimism and resolve has passed to me, I can only hope to pass it on to you. We are prepared for this battle, and we will fight it with great ferocity, and we will win with great alacrity. This is the land of truth, justice, and the American way, and an alien army will never change that. The chairman is heartened to hear all that. Troubling times, and we have to admit that we have faced tough times before. And in the middle of the chairman's statement, Alana calls bullshit and makes an impassioned speech about the fact that, yeah, okay, you guys have held off alien invasions before. Ran is thousands of years past you in technological advancements, and the Picts, and Rand didn't stand a friggin' chance against the Picts. Back in the flashback, Adam and Alana are, eating cave rats, trying to keep warm. As the month they spend waiting continues. In the present, Alana is told that the president has decided that there's going to, yes, this is a clear threat, and he wants a fast solution, and he's going to put together a task force to lead the effort. The task force would report directly to the White House and would coordinate with the Justice League and direct their action. And the president wants Adam Strange to lead the task force, with Alana at his side, of course. And then later on in their month in the cave, they're starting to dehydrate, so Adam uses his pistol to basically pound a hole in a wall to get some water. After they both drink some, Adam and Alana make love in the cave. Later on, Alana and Adam are discussing the thing of the task force, and also talking about Mr. Terrific's visit to Rand and what happened. And in fact, Adam's actually shocked that Mr. Terrific punched Sardath. But neither of them have that high of an opinion of Mr. Terrific. Adam arrives at home. The two share a drink, toasting to battles fought and wars won, and then to Rand. Once the month is up, Adam and Alana decide to say their piece to the cave people, with Alana stating that citing all the appropriate courtesies, and if the cave will choose to help them, then they'll do it together. After it is done, they'll celebrate together as daughters and sons of Rand. If they choose not to help us, they'll do it themselves, and after it is done, she will celebrate by coming here and killing all of them. Where once there were stones, there would only be dust. And she adds that they were never at the mercy. Her and Adam were never at their mercy. Rather, the rock people, or the stone people, or the rock people, are forever theirs. Adam Strange appears at a press conference about the task force, asked mainly about maybe how things are going with him between him and the League, and he explains he has a great relationship with the League, an excellent one. There's friends, his band of brothers. There's no doubt that they will be cooperating with the findings and the leadership of the task force. And this absurd investigation. He's allowed because of his trust in the League at finding out the truth. His understanding they're very close to completion, despite having made some errors along the way. And he looks forward to seeing, along with everyone, the truth come out in a fair and complete way. If anything, it'll help the process to see what he did with the Picts. And picking up at the end of the last issue, Alana's sitting with Mr. Terrific watching the press conference. We also see a moment of basic unity between the Ranians, the Helitot, the cave people, the stone people, and as all the races of Rand come together to fight off the Picts. And from above, Adam and Alana Strange are sitting there with their daughter, Aaliyah, watching, with Alana saying that what she's seeing is history. Something that Alana never thought she'd see. And Alana claims that this is something that Aaliyah will remember till the day, or for the rest of her life. That is where the issue ends. And that is it for this week's roundup. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.